Now we'll talk about real property. So real property, the applicable method that we're using is makers. The recovery period, which is stated by the IRS, depends on whether it's residential property or non-residential property. So residential property is 27 and a half years. Non-residential property placed into service after May 13th of 1993 is 39 years. This is really going to be the vast majority of what we talk about. I did include here that there was a period of time that if you had non-residential property placed into service before May 13th, 1993, there was a period of time between 1986 and 1993 that we used 31 and a half years. Those are almost fully depreciated, and so we won't be seeing that as much anymore, but I wanted you to know that before 1993, we had this odd period of time where there was 31 and a half years used as the recovery period just for non-residential property. We're going to stick to these first two scenarios, residential 27 and a half, non-residential 39 years. We also need to know the convention. So the convention that we use for real property is mid-month, and we always use that for real property. So the year placed into service, you get a half a month of depreciation in the month the property was placed, plus all subsequent months of depreciation, which will be already included in the table. So I'll show you that table in just a minute. Then in the year of disposition, just like what we've seen before, you get a half month of depreciation in the month of disposition, plus all the months that you held the asset before that. But you have to calculate it because the table isn't going to know that you disposed of the asset in June. All right, so a way you can calculate that is a full year of depreciation using the table times the month in which the asset is disposed of minus 1/2 divided by 12. All right, so here's what the tables look like for makers for real property. So we have residential and we have non-residential. These are slightly different in that the month placed in service is down the left side of the table. In year 1, you have one calculation, then you have years 2 through 18, years 19 through 27, year 28, and then finally in year 29. And the same logic over here for the 39-year recovery. Year 1 has its own column. Years 2 through 39, you have the same rate. And then in year 40, you have a different rate. So let's look at an example here. We have Dow Chemical purchased a new plant for $4 million on May 15th, 2019, and began using it immediately. $1.5 million of the purchase price is allocated to the land. Okay, so we know that when we purchase multiple assets at the same time, we have to allocate some of the purchase price to each of the assets. And so we purchased this plant for $4 million. We're allocating $1.5 million to the land, which we do not depreciate. The remainder of the purchase price is allocated to the plant. What is the depreciation deduction in 2019? So the depreciable basis is $2.5 million. The method is makers. The recovery period, are we talking about residential or non-residential? It's a plant for Dow Chemical, so it's going to be non-residential. So it's a 39-year recovery. And then the convention is mid-month. Okay, so those are the 4 pieces of information we need in order to calculate depreciation. So we take our depreciable basis. So for 2019, $2.5 million. Because it's non-residential, I'm going to be over here using this non-residential real property table, and it was placed into service in May, which is the 5th month. So I'm over here, and I'm looking at the 5th month, 1.605. So I'm going to multiply that by 1.605. and I will get depreciation of $40,125 in 2019. Again, note this is month 5. It was placed into service in May. It's year 1, so we're in the year 1 column, and it's non-residential property. All right, so assume that Dow Chemical sells the plant on April 12th, 2029. What is their depreciation deduction in 2029? So let's think about this for a second. We place it into service in 2019. We're selling it in 2029. So we're in this column of years 2 through 39. So I'm going to say, okay, great, 2029, I take my depreciable basis of $2.5 million. Again, I don't reduce it by depreciation I've already taken. And I'm just going to come over here to this next column, and my rate is going to be 2.564%. And I get depreciation in year 2029 of $64,100. Remember, in the year of disposal, we have to calculate, this is for the full year. We have to tell the table, or we have to fix the table's calculation, because the table doesn't know that we actually sold it in April. So if we're thinking about how much of the year should we get depreciation for, we should get depreciation for January, February, March, and then 1/2 of April. So if you think about what that is, that would be 1 month, 2 months, 3.5 months over 12. So we multiply that by 64,100, and we get the allowed depreciation of $18,695.83. That is the depreciation that this company would take in 2029. The way that we've written this that you can think about is you can take the full year of depreciation times the month in which the asset is disposed of minus 1/2 over 12. So in this case, our full year's worth of depreciation was the 64,100. The month in which the asset was disposed of was 4, it was April, minus 0.5 over 12. So if it's easier for you to think about it that way, then you can certainly do that. It also makes sense if you list it out and think about you should get 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, and 1/2.